Right below the internal oblique muscle, the last broad muscle layer of the anterolateral abdominal wall would be the transversus abdominis. As you can see at the lower portion, the position of muscle fibers here for internal oblique rather is transverse or horizontal, no? Similar to the position of transversus abdominis muscle fibers. But as you go higher, all of them are horizontal in position. Unlike the internal oblique, it's oblique, no, in the upper areas, no, while it's horizontal, and once again oblique going down near the inguinal region. So that this bundle of muscle fibers still belong to the internal oblique, no? That is part of those fibers which contribute to the formation of the cremaster muscle. So this membranous structure right here, that is already the fascia transversalis, which lies behind the transversus abdominis muscle. The transversus abdominis muscle does not have any contribution to the formation of the scrotal sac, while the fascia transversalis, it will give rise to the internal spermatic fascia of the scrotal sac. I think in one of the earlier videos, I have wrongly identified the dartos muscle layer as coming from the scarpa's fascia. So the dartos muscle layer actually comes from the Camper's layer of the superficial fascia. So the two muscles, internal oblique and transversus abdominis muscle, no, they will move, no, right above the spermatic cord, no? They will hook above the spermatic cord like that. So both of them are considered the roof of the inguinal canal. The anterior wall of the inguinal canal is formed by the external oblique aponeurosis. The anterior wall, we cut that open to expose the deeper structures. The fascia transversalis, no? It is found right behind the spermatic cord, so it's considered the posterior wall of the inguinal canal. Another component of the posterior wall, going to the midline, the aponeurosis of internal oblique and transversus abdominis aponeurosis, they will actually form the so-called conjoint tendon. They will fuse and form the conjoint tendon, which will attach to the pubic tubercle, and the conjoint tendon is right behind the spermatic cord. So together with the fascia transversalis or transversalis fascia, the conjoint tendon is considered part of the posterior wall of the inguinal canal. And right here down below, the floor of the inguinal canal is formed by the inguinal ligament. The inguinal ligament is actually the folded in lower border of the external oblique aponeurosis. No? It's folded in below the spermatic cord, so that's the inguinal ligament. So right beneath or below or behind the fascia transversalis is the extraperitoneal fat or extraperitoneal fascia, and the innermost layer of the abdominal wall is would be the parietal peritoneum. Parietal peritoneum. In the chest wall, it's your parietal pleura. Here in the abdomen, it's the parietal peritoneum. So, reviewing the lateral wall muscles, we have external oblique, internal oblique, and the transversus abdominis. Now, the aponeurosis of these three muscles will form what we call the rectus sheath, which will wrap around the rectus abdominis muscle. So partly dissected here, you can see this thing that I'm lifting up. That's the anterior rectus sheath. And behind the muscle fibers of rectus abdominis will be the posterior rectus sheath. The anterior rectus sheath extends from the epigastrium down to the symphysis pubis, while the posterior rectus sheath does not go all the way from epigastrium to symphysis pubis. It ends at the arcuate line. The arcuate line is somewhere in between the umbilicus and the ascis, somewhere in this level. So that's the lower border of the posterior rectus sheath. So anterior rectus sheath above the arcuate line, anterior rectus sheath again above the arcuate line is formed by the aponeurosis of external oblique and internal oblique. Posterior rectus sheath above the arcuate line is formed by aponeurosis of internal oblique and transversus abdominis. Below the arcuate line again, we do not have posterior rectus sheath anymore. So the anterior rectus sheath below the arcuate line is formed by the aponeurosis coming from all three lateral wall muscle layers: external oblique, internal oblique, and transversus abdominis muscle. So to repeat, the anterior rectus sheath below the arcuate line is formed by aponeurosis coming from all three muscle layers. The arcuate line is visible, or it will be visible once we open up the abdominal wall.